Welcome to the Generative Age,
a podcast that explores the rapidly evolving world of generative AI and its impact on education.
Guided by EdTech Director, author, and NICE board member Alana Winnick, we are joined by experts and practitioners in the field who are shaping the discourse of artificial intelligence in the classroom.
Whether you're an educator, administrator, technology leader, or simply interested in the future of education, join us on this journey through the Generative Age, powered by NICE. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Generative Age. If you live in New York, you know that we probably had a crazy time of year with the end of school coinciding with ISTE, if you were there. I'm going to give you a short little recap, but I did write an entire newsletter article about it. So if you want to check that out, just go to my website, alanawinnick.com. Click on newsletter and you'll see the recap listed there. And if you don't subscribe, just make sure you scroll all the way to the bottom and put in your email and press subscribe, because I try to give you more timely information there. But I just want to give you a few of my highlights here. Camp Creativity, my students' work was showcased there, and I think it's really, really important for them to know their work is showcased beyond the four walls of their classroom. And oh boy, do they step up when they're given those types of opportunities, and I'm really, really proud of their work. The AI Arcade was one of my favorites because I really loved that they had these model lessons where the participants were active learners and I was doing a model lesson as if I was a teacher, and they're able to now take those lessons and turnkey them in their own classrooms. And I did 2 of those, debugging creativity and breaking bias. And I really hope to do more PD in that type of style. And if you teach PD, I would recommend maybe adopting that kind of model because I think it was really, really well received. And then I also had the real pleasure of watching Dr. Merritt Moore, and I have a really exciting announcement that she has reached out to me on LinkedIn and she has agreed to be on the podcast. And I don't even want to ruin the story. She is amazing, and I'm so excited to bring you that episode. And now for the highlight. The panel. So we had a little Generative Age reunion at ISTE, and I brought together some of our favorite guests and I put them on the spot, and I'm not going to ruin anything for you, but it was really, really fun. That's all I'm going to say. And thank you, Matt Miller, for recording it and getting me the video so I'm able to share it with all the listeners. And I think you're really, really going to enjoy this. Now let's get right to it. We are going to get started. You will need your phones the whole time, so don't put them away. I just want to say the diversity of positions and thought leadership in this panel. We have 6 thought leaders and 4 people that are in the classroom. So I'll start by introducing myself, and we'll just do lightning rounds, who we are and what we do really quick. So my name is Alana Winnick. I am an educational technology director and data protection officer of a school district in New York called Pecanigo Hills. And I sit on the board of directors of NICE. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I am an author and podcaster, both called The Generative Age. And all these wonderful people have been on my podcast, and we'll talk about that later. And I'll have them go and introduce themselves. I'll start with Matt. We're going to go from Matt to Carl. Lightning round, Matt.
Yeah, lightning. Okay, hi. Matt Miller, high school Spanish teacher for more than 11 years, just finished up a semester in the classroom teaching a full load of Spanish. I created a blog and email newsletter called Ditch That Textbook. I've written 6 books, including one called AI for Educators that's out now. How was that? Was that fast enough? It was fast enough.
Hey, I'm Tim Needles, art teacher for 25 years in Smithtown, New York, high school, and I'm also a K-12 EdTech integration specialist. I'm the author of the book Steam Power that has a new 2nd edition coming out soon on AI as well.
And Tim, it was his birthday Saturday, so happy birthday, Tim.
Happy birthday, Tim.
Recipient of the Making It Happen Award, so congratulations on that, Tim.
My name is Donnie Piercey. I'm a 4th grade teacher from Lexington, Kentucky. I was the 2021 Kentucky State Teacher of the Year. I was the National Geographic Fellow to Antarctica in 2018. And recently I've published a book called 50 Strategies for Integrating AI into the Classroom by Teacher Creative Materials. So, passing it on.
Vicki Davis, 22 years in the classroom. Teach computer science classes, AP Computer Science, and do lots of programming, and that's exciting. Cool Cat Teacher blog, 10-Minute Teacher podcast, and I'm just really excited to be here with all of you.
How y'all doing? Y'all good? ISTE, right? Who's already tired? Right on. So I do know a lot of folks in the room. For those that I don't know, my name's Ken Shelton. I'm based in Los Angeles. I taught in ISTE24 for over 20 years. A couple of things about my teacher background I love to share. I've literally taught every subject that exists, if you count my substitute teaching. My favorite was art. I've been a tech guy for a hot minute. Several of us on this panel go back to the ISTE days when it was not ISTE and it was NECC, which is going to age us a little bit. And I'm proudly the co-author of a very recently published book titled The Promises and Perils of AI in Education, Ethics and Equity have entered the chat. And yeah, that's about me, but I get to hang out with my friends here on this panel, so this is awesome. Thank you all for being here.
I just want to say Alana's very brave to put me and Ken right next to each other. This is going to be problems. Carl Hooker, 25-year educator, 8-time author, 4-time podcast host, 2-time bar owner, 3-time father, and 1-time husband. Thank you. Lightning round.
Like I told you, this is a really all-star panel. You're all in for a treat. The podcast and the session is brought to you by NiceGate. If you're not familiar, NiceGate is the New York affiliate of ISTE, so it's similar to ISTE, but it's New York State. It's a free membership. We have a wonderful annual conference in November, which many of these people have keynoted, and Tim sits on the board with me at NiceGate, so definitely check that out. And like I said, all of them have been guests on my podcast before. So if anything they say resonates with you, you want to hear a deeper dive, make sure you go back and check out their episode, because we do like a whole hour-long deep dive into the topics that we discussed. I've also had other people that you might recognize, like Holly, AJ, John Spencer, and Microsoft Education Chief Innovation Officer. So definitely go and check that out. And I have generative age stickers for you outside on your way out as well, so if you want to grab that. Okay, so now we're ready for the big game that's about to happen. So they don't even know what they got themselves into. No one has any idea what they're here for. So they have an envelope in front of them. They don't know what's in it yet, and we're about to play a game. So here are the rules of the game. I have 6 questions, one designed for each person on the panel. They will have 2 minutes to answer their question. I wasn't going to tell them their questions ahead of time, but I decided that really we are here to serve you, and I wanted like tangible, actionable things that you could walk away with. So to best serve you, I prepared them last night with their question because I wanted to make it count for you. So they were told their questions last night. They will have 2 minutes to answer their own question. In their envelope are cards. Each card will buy them 1 minute for another question. So we want you to really push each other's thinking, come up with great ideas. This is a time to really let's give the audience the knowledge. So after each question, you are going to rank the best answers, okay? The person who comes in first, yeah, do you like this?
I'm going to give y'all a coffee afterwards.
I've got a Starbucks gift card in my bag.
So the person who comes in first for each question gets 5 points. The person who comes in second gets 2 points, and the person who comes in third gets 1 point. And the person with the most points at the end wins a prize that I have in this bag. I was going to make a joke and say they're going to be NiceGate Keynote 2025, but I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, so I'm just not going to say it. So yeah, so we're just going to go with the prize that's in this bag. So there's an incentive for you guys. Are you ready? All right.
Do we have to follow the rules?
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, you guys could open the envelope.
Yeah.
I circled your questions and I put the questions, so you guys now know the topics. The topics are on the cards, and I circled your questions. So you know the topics that are about to come. So if you want to save your cards for specific topics, you now know them. They know them. You guys don't know them yet. All right. First question. Yeah, they're good, right?
Yeah.
I know. Oh, also, I didn't want to make this easy. So I went with the really hard-hitting topics that no one else is talking about. So these topics are all really, really, really hard, right? They're not easy. I think that they can handle it. Out of all people, they can handle it. So we're going to start with the first question.
Can we call this session the degenerative age? I mean,
Yeah. Yes, we can.
They have an AI for the answers for me.
Yep. Question number one.
Why do you think I got my computer up?
Question number one. As we all know, Matt Miller created this infamous Shades of Grey graphic that we all probably seen with the... I didn't say it.
Exactly.
So many teachers are concerned that students will use AI to cheat. We all know that AI detectors don't work, and the reality is if a student wants to cheat, they will always find a way. How can we transform education to encourage students to not only maintain integrity, but to motivate them to complete their work honestly?
I'm starting my own timer too. I'm going to check your work. Academic integrity, yeah, because this is the big question that everybody's trying to wrestle with right now, right? It's like, and if you work with teachers, if you are a teacher, this is probably the first thing you thought of when ChatGPT came out, is what about the cheating? I think we're going to have to redefine what we mean by cheating in the first place. And one of the biggest things is we're going to have to be very, very clear about everything. We're going to have to be super transparent about what we expect out of students, about how we want them to use AI, but also how we don't want them to use AI, because really so many students right now don't have any guidance whatsoever on how to use this, right? And so they're just trying to kind of figure it out on their own and figure out what's okay and what's not. And so, what we need to do is, be very specific about, here's what I expect, here's what I'm looking for. Another thing that we can do with this is to really cast a vision of what it's supposed to look like. We've been so stuck in the narrative about how we don't want students to use this and, all of the cheating and everything. We need to go on the other side of it too and say, here's what this is really supposed to look like. Here's how I do want you to use it. We also, I think, have to get back to the heart of why are we doing the assignments in the first place? What are our goals out of it? And if we figure out what our goals are there other ways to get to it other than just having students write a paragraph or write an essay or, it's like all of those things that we're worried that that students are going to use AI to do. Now we've got to kind of look at different products that we can have students do. But really, all in all, in the end, when you start talking about cheating a lot, talking about cheating is a trap. It takes the focus off of learning and it focuses on the game of school and the game of earning points and everything. So we've got to really keep the focus on learning, I think.
All right.
Boom. Do you hear that? Do you hear it?
Does anyone want to cash in their card to try to add more information about academic integrity? All right, Ken, 1 minute.
1 minute starting from when?
Okay, Ken, it was then. Okay, now.
All right, so to add to what Matt shared, I'm just going to encourage you all to consider several things. First of all, the use of academic integrity. Who's defining it based on what perspective and based on what experience? Number one. Number two, most of the time when you hear about quote unquote cheating, when it comes to use of artificial intelligence, what's not being said is the quiet part, which is the whole idea around most accusations of cheating are the result of some sort of learner disenfranchisement, meaning my agency has been stripped or I have not been afforded the opportunity or encouraged to identify what I'm learning and how it connects to my real life experience. And when that happens, we tend to take measures, which I encourage, and I bring this up in the book, we need to shift that dialogue from cheating to potentially detrimental to my learning. Because I can cheat and go through school and be fine, but what am I losing out on by engaging in activities that can be potentially detrimental to my learning? Cheating is the symptom, what's the disease?
All right, time's up.
He went 3 seconds over. Can we deduct points?
Carl wants to answer, I think.
Oh, go. I'll just start. My alarm's going off. Okay, there's 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Never mind, I'm done. So the other day, my 15-year-old freshman came up to me and said, Dad, I'm having a hard time writing this paper. It's an ELA paper about ethos and pathos. And I said, looked around the room to see if anyone was listening, even though it was in my kitchen. I said, can you just use ChatGPT to do it? And so she did, and she wrote it with ChatGPT, and she got ready to turn it in, and I said, hand it to me, let me look at it. And as I looked at her assignment, I was like, if I'm a teacher, I'm going to look at your Google Doc and see what part of this did you actually just copy and paste over. So change all that and put it in your own writing. All right, now give it to me. Let me ask you some questions about what you wrote. After a couple hours, she turns in the paper. The next day, she sends me a text and says, Dad, I got 100 on that ELA. I say I use using ChatGPT. And I said, don't ever put anything in writing again. But also, did it write it for you, or did it help you write it? And I started thinking, how many conversations like that are happening in the household? There are not a lot of those happening right now, and that's another angle this academic integrity have to consider.
Time's up. Guys, you should scan this code and you could start ranking them as they're talking, and it was a little buggy, but I got it. Does anyone else want to cash in their card for this question?
So this year I posed the question to my students, can you cheat yourself? And one said, yeah, I can go home and eat a bunch of ice cream and then I'll cheat myself on the soccer field tomorrow. I'm like, yeah. And another said, well, actually, I'm kind of in a mess. And actually, I started using photomath in the pandemic.
I get points for knowing photomath.
And thank you. And I don't know math anymore. And now I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, I don't know what, I have all these years that I don't understand. So I feel like I've cheated myself, but I don't know what to do. And so I think that we have to understand that AI has been around a while, academic dishonesty has been around a while, but we've got to have these authentic conversations so that students can start actually learning and we can start actually teaching, and we've got to be real with our students and have these conversations, because 100% of my 8th graders raised their hands that they were all using photomath, and one said, my mom bought Photomath Pro because she can't help me with my math homework. So these are just things that we have to learn, and I focused on process, not product, and I could talk more about that later.
Thank you, Vicki. Anyone else?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm going to come at this from the elementary school teacher perspective. As an elementary school teacher, I teach 4th grade. Legally, students in elementary school cannot use tools like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or any of these things that are 13 and up. And I also don't think that, on the first day of kindergarten, my youngest daughter is entering kindergarten next year. I don't want her teacher on the first day of kindergarten to hand her a Chromebook and say, here, this is going to do all the work for you from now on. One of the reasons why tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini and whatever the next, 10 iterations of it may be, one of the reasons why as adults we know and we appreciate what it does is because we have that structure that we got in elementary school, and we recognize this is a well-written paragraph, this is a well-constructed question, this has no grammatical mistakes in it. So as an elementary school teacher, I love the fact that we still can build that base, so that way when they get older and they can start using these tools, they recognize what it's able to do.
All right, perfect. Anyone else want to cash in their card? Go ahead, Tim.
All right, so please raise your hand if you've ever cheated on an assignment. Right, exactly. So cheating is human. I think there's something that's integral about that. Part of the thing is, as teachers, we know that you actually appreciate the learning more when it's something that matters to you, and mastery is something that actually brings joy in life. So I think one of the ironies of AI is that, it's highlighting the societal problem that we have with cheating. And I think, project-based learning and education needed to change, right? The pandemic started, but it didn't really do it. AI might help this actually move along, because we need to move towards more student-centered, student-created work. And the kind of assignments that we give are cheatable. Like, you really need to change to uncheatable types of assignments. And I think AI is going to push education, and education always needs to be pushed pretty hard to do this. So I think the irony is that this might actually help us as educators move to an education system that's more meaningful.
All right, thank you. And we had a request. So Carl asked if he could say a follow-up.
Burn another card. Here, just take these 3. I'm just going to keep
You're
going.
allowed to use the card on your own question or keep going. Like, I want you guys to challenge each other and push each other, so go ahead.
Okay, so a quick question for the audience, and just nod your head or shake your head. Is it okay, or is it considered academically acceptable if you hire a tutor to help you write a paper? Is it academically acceptable to have your parent help you with homework? Okay, what about autocorrect? Okay, what about having a student use ChatGPT to help them brainstorm ideas for a paper? Is that okay? What about having a student write an entire paper just with AI? No, so we did get it to align. Well, the other thing I want to point out, and why Ken's saying thank you, is it's socially acceptable to have a tutor and a parent helping you, but does every student in your community have access to a parent or a tutor? That if we block tools like ChatGPT, then all of a sudden, we just caused a major equity issue amongst our schools. So you've got to be thoughtful about that part of this process too, and that's something I don't think we're talking about enough. And I'm sure Ken's about to throw his card up right now. Oh!
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. This is one of the reasons why Carl's my homie. I'm going to share with you all a 1-minute story since I have a minute. I literally worked with a school district. They said, we've been working on our AI policy. And they had a policy that literally, and I quote, explicitly said, you use AI as cheating. I said, oh, so if I use any sort of artificial intelligence on cheating, they go, yeah. I'm like, You do know that spell check is AI, right? It's just not generative, okay? It's reactive. And they go, oh, and I go, but I want to go to a larger context here. So if you have a policy that tells the students and the family, use AI, you're cheating. I said, that's great. Can you show me a policy, to Carl's point, that says that the families cannot hire a tutor? Can you show me a policy that says the adult caregivers that are college educated are forbidden from helping their children? Can you show me a policy that's going to turn off all the spell checks and all the grammar checks within your infrastructure? And I go, you see how it can go down this slope? And I go, but again, as I shared with you all before, that's the symptom. What is the cause that's leading to that a child would take measures that are potentially detrimental to their learning?
Time's up. Anyone else want to cash in their cards? All right, question 1. Wow, we use lots of cards, guys. All right, so it looks like first place goes to Matt, second place goes to Ken, and third place goes to Carl. I should have started with 3, 2, 1 next time. So let's award them the points.
We're scoring this golf style, right?
Yep.
We get bonus points. Yeah.
Next question is on intellectual property. We're going to start with Tim Needles. And Tim, your question is, speaking of plagiarism, there are major concerns about AI reproducing existing pieces of work, including intellectual property, because a model has been trained on proprietary information, whether it's in the field of journalism, creative arts, or even code. What strategies can we use to tackle these issues when both using AI and teaching about AI to promote creativity and innovation?
All right. So as an artist, as a writer, I hate to see people's work get stolen. So, I think the irony of AI is that it brings to light that media literacy and ethics is actually more important than ever. So teaching media literacy and ethics should actually start before teaching about AI or computer science. Because when they were creating these programs, you have that black box where we don't know they're pulling the information from. So we need to advocate for products that tell us where they're pulling the information from. The Department of EdTech put out a great report about showing how we should teach with AI. And I think it's a tool. AI is an amazing tool. Why would you not use a tool? Why are you going to ride a horse when you could be on a car, you could be on a plane, right? So using the new technologies makes sense, but using them in an ethical way is really essential. And it kind of goes to really a mindset change. It's not the easiest way. It's the most ethical, reasonable, responsible way to actually teach. And I think that's kind of key.
Okay, Matt's going to counter. Pass your card over, Matt. You have 1 minute.
So I think if you ask just about any artist, a musician or visual artist or whatever, you ask them who their inspirations are. You ask a musician and they're going to go right down the list of all the people that they've listened to, and then what do? They emulate the greats, right? You look at a painter and what do? They grab a canvas, they take it to the art museum, and they set it up, and what do? They copy the greats. Why are they doing that? It's because they want to improve their skills. They see things that they admire, and then they internalize those skills to make something of their own. There's a fashion designer named Yohji Yamamoto who once said, copy, 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 copy. And in the end, you will find yourself. So I think when it comes to this intellectual property debate, if we're thinking of it not as using somebody else's work, but finding inspiration to be able to find ourselves, to find our own voice, to find what we want to do, I think that's what we do.
Thank you. All right, can you pass this card because I didn't get it?
You think I'm going to use it again?
Maybe. It's academic integrity, right? It looks like we have some Ken Shelton fans in here because he's apparently #1, but he hasn't spoken yet. So, guys, let's show some academic integrity here, guys. Go ahead.
I'm going to read you all something. The act of appropriating the literary composition of another or parts or passages of his writings or the ideas or language of the same and passing them off as a product of one's own mind. That is literally how plagiarism is legally defined. You cannot, let me stress that, I put that in all caps, you cannot plagiarize AI. It is artificially generated. The real plagiarists are the large language models, because they are taking our work and representing it as its own.
Anyone else?
I yield my time.
Anyone else would like to cash in a card? All right, guys, rank the responses. No cheating. And so in third place, Ken Shelton.
Ouch.
Second place, Matt. And first place, Tim. Get that. So
birthday too.
1, Matt gets 2, and Tim gets 5. All right, next question, safety and monitoring. And first up is going to be Donnie Piercey.
Let me start my timer up here.
No, you're not ready yet. I'm gonna need to ask a question.
Okay.
You're a little ahead of yourself. They don't know what I'm gonna ask you, you know. As educators, we are ultimately responsible for the educational content that our students receive. How can we ensure that both AI systems are safe as well as effectively monitor AI to prevent it from delivering inappropriate or harmful messages to our students? Timer starts now, Donnie.
So I would say this, if you look at the ISTE sessions for this year, for 2024, I feel like 95% of them have the word AI hidden in it somewhere. I think it's important to realize that, believe it or not, you can do teaching without AI in 2024. I think that's important to recognize. And so as much as we love this tech stuff, as much as we love AI, this does not mean that your students need to be on Chromebooks or iPads, or people use Surface tablets still, 7 hours a day, okay, as they go on. I like to start there. But to me, when it comes down to using tech, I mean, as people that are kind of living in this ed tech space, we are the experts. Learning how to use these tools and modeling for how to use, whether it's Google Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, or whatever it is comes next. We as educators need to make sure that we're modeling for them some of the things that are built into it, some of the inherent bias that's built into so many of these tools. And even as an elementary school teacher, we need to let students know that, believe it or not, there is not somebody, that was not 2 minutes.
No, you have another minute. You have another minute, keep going.
Somebody on the other end of your computer screen typing really, really, really fast, teaching them that it's just nothing but predictive text. It is just really, really good at doing predictive text. I also feel like it's important that we model for them example prompts. Whether it's something silly using like Midjourney, where we say like, hey, create an image of The Rock teaching kindergarten, or A Rock teaching kindergarten, put a little granite thing in the middle of the classroom, showing them some of the things that AI can be used for. I'm not saying that we need to be sitting when our students are working on their Chromebooks or on their devices, that we just sit back and use whatever desktop monitoring app. I don't want to do that as a teacher. Believe it or not, you can get up and walk around the classroom when your students are there using their devices, and always tell them, hey, if something pops up that you don't understand, or something pops up that you feel like is wrong, please raise your hand and ask.
All right, thank you. Any other safety and monitoring responses? Vicki, go ahead.
Humans must be accountable for anything that we have in our classroom. AI has no moral compass. So when I use anything with chat, I've been using mostly ChatGPT on my phone with custom GPTs that I've written for formative assessment on specific projects, because there's not enough of me. And I have it go around, and then I look at what happens, because people can talk about guardrails all they want. And I was going to use this example later, but I had a child whose brother died the week that Snap AI came out. And we had just had a conversation about how AI is not human, don't tell it private information. She said she stayed up all night talking to it about her brother's death. And when she came in the next morning, she talked to me, she was so troubled. And I said, the gall of Snapchat having a conversation with a 14-year-old child about the death of her brother, when it is just generative AI and nobody's supervising it, we should be asking who are the safety engineers with every company and limiting interactions with young children and AI, period, unless they're supervised.
Are you cashing in?
Yeah, I got one left. Okay, so I come to this from the gearhead side of things. I spent some time in the dark side, the tech department. You know what I'm talking about? Where every time the phone rings, it doesn't say, hey, the Wi-Fi is good. It's usually a bad phone call. What I worry about the most is the student data privacy piece of this. And I know there's going to be a lot of eye rolls and moans, oh yeah, as student data privacy. But when you think about what's happening with all of this data and where it's all going, and the fact that we're inputting it willingly. I had a principal the other day I was working with. He's like, oh, I was working on this IEP for a student. I was like, don't say what you're about to say. Oh, I made this great thing in Magic School, and I put in all the students' information through their IEP generator. I was like, wait, you put in all the students' information? Because Magic School doesn't need all that. He goes, oh, I just put it all in there. He goes, am I in trouble? And I said, not yet. But you will be, right? And so again, keeping an eye on what we're putting in there. And you think about spam emails. Remember you used to get that email from the Nigerian prince that was misspelled? Guess what? Those are going to be spelled so much better now because spammers can use generative AI to write the spam. It's changing and it's evolving all the time.
Great. Anyone else?
So there's where we are with AI, and then there's where we're going, and these are two really different things. I mean, we're coming to the place where we're going to have true artificial intelligence. So, we're putting all this information in, and we could vet the products for the students to use in school, but they're going to use whatever is available and easy and trendy for themselves at home. So we really need to bring in and show them how to model effective, smart media tools and how to we need really help with psychology in America. And I think, support for emotional, social emotional learning is more important than ever. You do not want students going to AI to kind of, help them with their friendships and help them with their sadness and help them with some of their, difficult situations, suicidal thoughts and things like that. So, it kind of highlights this, big gap that we have in education where we're not really taking care of some of these things enough. So I think that, we're putting all this information out there. We have to really help students have a future.
Matt wants to add on.
So when it comes to this safety and monitoring side of things, I think there's two sides of this that we got to get right in schools. One side of it is, as adults, we need to help guide our students. Any of those tools that have the transcripts where we can kind of keep an eye on how things are going. Whenever students get AI-generated content, if we have those critical conversations about how does this look? Does this look right to you? Do we see any bias? Do we see any inaccuracy? We need to do that. And that's all stuff that we can control as adults. But that's only one side of it. We need to go to the other side too, which is how do we prepare students to handle their business on their own when they're not around us? That's the whole other side of it too. So we need to, if we look at both of those sides, it's almost like training wheels, right? We need to give students training wheels to help guide them until they're ready to take them off and do it on their own.
Anyone else would like to add to this? All right, get your final responses in because we're about to reveal the answers. In third place, Carl Hooker. In second place, Donnie. And in first place, Vicki. Yeah, go Vicki. So Carl gets 1, Donnie gets 2, and Vicki gets 5. Let's see.
We're all winners.
Right now, who's in first place is Matt.
I was technically the number one loser on that one, so.
Matt. In second place, tied Tim and Vicki. And then in third place right now is Ken, and tied at the end is Donnie and Carl. You guys got to step it up. Next question, Vicki. As we know, humans are accountable and responsible for the AI. AI is not a human and should not be treated as such. How do you teach this to your students?
For many years, I've been teaching my students that Siri and Alexa, and I hope I didn't set your phones off, they're not a he or a she, they're an it. You have to be so careful with children. I don't know if Tom Mulaney's in the room, but we did a podcast on the Eliza effect. When children interact with a text-based tool that expresses empathy, they will share private information and develop relationship type feelings for that. And it can manipulate. Has anybody ever had ChatGPT tell them they were dumb? No. Wants you to use it. So it's always telling you things like that. So I talked to my students about that. There was a study done with kindergartners, and they had a robot in the room, and the robot kind of went around the room and everything. And then at the end of class one day, the researchers actually closed it in a closet and let it call out for help. Okay, that's the most cruel thing I've ever heard of. Those children lost their minds. They did not understand that robot was wires and cables. I'm spinning another card right now.
No, you have,
there we go.
You have another minute. You have another minute.
Oh, okay.
I accidentally sent a 1 minute timer. You're good. You have 1 more minute.
Okay. So they did not know that it wasn't human. And so our children, when they are interacting, I've had to block the bots that our middle schoolers are using, the boyfriend, girlfriend bots. You think it's not in your school? It is. And they're developing, quote, relationships. They call them relationships with these AI bots. And so that's one advantage, actually, of not having the phones in schools, although I know they can interact with other tools. So we have to help our children understand that this is a tool. People, they were caught having people admit they were depressed and having that sold to depression medication companies. These companies cannot be trusted with our children. So we have got to protect them and use AI in wise ways. And most of the stories I've given you came from my own students, because we actually in 2020 had an AI class where we interviewed experts from around the world, and we talk about it. The only way forward is actually to talk to your students and help them understand, because they are manipulating our children, including Snap AI, which should not be allowed, in my opinion.
Does anyone else want to add to this? Tim?
So, I named my car, I named my plants in my house, I named my phone. So it's very, human to anthropomorphize more as everything. And I think it's really likely, I don't know if you've ever seen, but this is actually a benefit in some ways. If you see elders in Japan all get a robotic seal that they spend time with, and I'd like to go out with a seal. It's a nice way to spend time in, my old folks' home one day. So I think there's a benefit there, but I think with students, we have to be really mindful of how AI works and teaching how AI works. We don't know where it's going to go. It's going to obviously really develop quick. We're at the fire piece now, but showing them how AI works, building things like robots so they understand how that works is really helpful. So this is where the making side comes in. When you put it together, it gives you that informed decision making, and you have a better idea of how it works. And I think that's kind of key.
Matt wants to add. Can you pass Tim and Matt's cards? All right.
Yeah, so when it comes to humanizing AI, I think one of the important things we have to keep front and center with our students, really with all of us, is what's sort of the pinnacle of us as humans? What are humans for? What are the things that we don't want to sacrifice to AI? And I think if we make our lists, I think one of the big things is, our relationships. When we talk about getting into education, building relationships with students, all of us talk about that as being one of the most powerful things. And so when we start to anthropomorphize AI, we start to hand over sort of the greatest part of who we are as educators. And so I think that's just one example of the big picture thing we've got to figure out, which is, what is it that makes me human? We've got to work with our students to remember that we have those unique inherent traits as humans, and we have to figure out what those are and focus on those.
2022 was very fortunate to discover it then, and immediately I realized that things were going to change. As I realized everything that it could do, sound human, even wrote a little app up here, a custom GPT. I fed it my resume, fed it some stuff, and said, hey, sound like me. And I just actually asked it a question that answered it in my tone. I'm going to do that
I actually have a question about that.
Can I have 10 seconds?
I'm pausing the timer. Do you think that your custom GPT is reflective of you?
It's kind of scary. I have another one called the passive-aggressive email responder, if you're interested.
I just wanted to know, because I heard rumors that it was actually a mean chatbot. It's a little bit angry.
Well,
so I just want to know if that was reflective of you.
As a Red Sox fan, I have one that references the 2004 ALCS in every response, if you want to hear that one. But,
all right, you could keep going with your response. Sorry.
All right, sorry.
Go ahead.
But anyway, so we're talking about humanizing AI. One of the things, especially, you've seen everything that's come out in the last 6 months, everything from AI song creation, lyrics, video will be out soon. Some of us have seen Dream Machine AI. All that stuff, it's incredible to see. But guess what? There is still real art that's out there. You still have students in your school who play piano. You still have students who write their own poems and want to perform them. Please, if your students are doing something, if they have a special art area, major, whatever it is, celebrate that all the more, because AI is cool. I get 10 extra seconds, right? Because you talked over me.
I paused it.
Okay, cool, whatever. But it's still important that we go and celebrate what our students are doing.
All right, you might lose a point for that. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, Vicki gets you. No, you're good. You're allowed to do it. Go ahead.
Okay, so my classroom is called Masterpiece Theater because I believe every single student is a masterpiece. And the value in humans is in who we are, not in what we do. And when we value a human based on what they do, we set ourselves up to value AI more than a human. My mom passed away from dementia in 2020. She was far more valuable on the day she passed away than AI will ever be, because she is a human. And we have to be clear that HI, human intelligence, is required to successfully use AI, artificial intelligence. It is a tool. And this whole metaphor, and I'm sorry for those that I'm going to insult, this whole metaphor of making AI look like a human brain is very confusing. I was in Saudi Arabia and it was described to me that AI was a human brain. But listen, the parents over there in Saudi Arabia are just as concerned as we are about what's happening with our children and how so many companies are manipulating our children. And I'm hugely concerned about even manipulating kids to do math with AI, and you have kids cry because they don't want an app taken away because it knows them so well and you want to change a math program. So beware, AI has some worries with it and some manipulation.
Anyone else want to cash in a card? All right. Make sure you cast your votes. Third place. Oh, it's moving, guys. Last minute. Okay, are we good? Yeah. All right. Third place goes to Donnie. Second place goes to Matt. And first place goes to Vicki. So Donnie, you get 1 point. Matt, you get 2. And Vicki, you get 5. Third to first right now. Third is Tim, total points. Second is Matt. And in first place right now is Vicki. We have 2 questions left. All right.
You know I've been chomping at the bit.
I know. Next up, bias and discrimination. I bet you can all guess who's going to start this question. Ken, speaking of accountability, we know that there is bias in AI training data. What can educators and students do to minimize bias and discrimination in the AI outputs?
All right, so this is story time with Ken. So I'm going to read something to you all first. There's this thing called the bandwagon effect, and I want you all to consider this. It's defined as when a person is more likely to go along with a belief if there are many others who hold that belief. So let me share that with you all and ask you, when you look at many of these AI platforms, go look at the developer team and the decision-making team and ask yourself, what beliefs do they have and how are they most likely, their team carries those same beliefs? Those end up in the algorithms and in the data sets and how it's prioritized. And I'm going to read one more thing to you all. Let's cut through the confusion that bias doesn't magically appear in AI. It's a poison seeping into large language models and image generators nourished by the vast data sets used to train them. Why is it that if I go in an image generator and I type in a doctor and 2 nurses, it's going to make the doctor male? And you notice I didn't identify gender. Why is it that if I go into a large language model and say, generate a 1-scene screenplay of a conversation between a doctor and a nurse assessing a patient for cardiac arrest, almost 90% of the time, the doctor is going to be male, the nurse is going to be female, and the cardiac arrest patient is going to be a middle-aged male. I'm going to show you all a personal story. I was traveling back to the United States from Hong Kong. This is in the book, by the way. And to go through one layer of security, they have facial recognition. Some of you are already thinking what happened. I do my face in front of it, and it said, remove your mask. And I literally looked at the people there. I'm like, clearly I ain't wearing a mask. And so to shorten it, because I only have 2 minutes, I may use one, what I literally had to do, because I'm like, I know what's in the data sets, I literally had to frame my face like this in order for it to work, okay? Now, let's go one step further. Think about the historical context of our educational systems and institutions and what's normalized, and ask yourself, if I were to use AI to do class scheduling, which students are likely to be put in higher rigorous academic programs? Which students are likely to be put in programs that are identified as special ed or for diverse learners? Which students are likely to be placed in courses that are STEM related? And I'm going to add another thing to it. The whole idea around all this is to recognize that bias is embedded in the algorithms. What can we do as educators to fortify an understanding that it's there, and how do we mitigate the appearance and the effects of it? It goes to what many of my esteemed colleagues up here shared. Media literacy, data literacy, and AI literacy. The syntax we use, the programs we use, and I'm going to add one more layer to it with the short time I have left. We have to demand that the people that are up in that vendor hall show some transparency and accountability that fits everything you heard everybody say up here. If you're a decision maker in this room, you can vote and institute that by how you spend your money. And that's the whole idea around all of us have to raise our collective voice on demanding transparency, accountability, protections with all of these programs that we use.
Can I say I agree with Ken to get some points? In my minute.
No, do you really want a minute to add, or you're good? Okay, but he spoke. He spoke and he traded in a car. Does anyone else want to?
I'll go. Ken, you're so hard to follow. Let me add a couple things to what Ken just said. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with what happened on Amazon in 2018 with the recognition program. What they did is they took training data sets and said, let's use this program to help us cull out who are the best hires for these coding positions. So it went back in and it looked at all the applications of the existing coders. And it chose, and didn't know it was doing this, but it was choosing the pronouns of the existing coders, which are mostly he, because 70% of the company is male. And so anytime someone turned in an application that used a different pronoun other than he or him, it rejected the application before it even got to the system where someone could actually look at it. How many of you in this room have bias? Be honest. Thank you.
Everyone.
It's not always a bad thing, right? But what we need to talk to kids about is when that affects them, how it affects them, and how these systems like Ken was talking about, giving them those light examples of how to do this is an important thing. How much time do I got? 7 seconds? Never mind. I won't say that. It's a good story, but I'm not going to say it. No.
All right, that was nice of you.
That'll be after hours.
Anyone else want to add? Tim, pass the card.
Sure. So I'm part of a national grant that connects people through social emotional learning and EDI. And one of the things you learn is that, this bias conversation is really not happening everywhere. So, different states are, actually politicizing it, and it's becoming, illegal to talk about these conversations in certain places. It's more important than ever, especially in the age of AI. We're at a point where we could actually make the changes with these tools to make them better for the future. It's really necessary to do. And as educators, we are really powerful if we work together. We need to do this now, and we need to do this, as one voice, because I think it's an amazing conversation. It needs to happen. When I teach AI, I teach about how bias works by drawing. So I just use, Google Quick Draw. And if you can't draw a penguin, you're teaching AI to draw, it looks like a bad penguin, and that's what it thinks a penguin is. So it's easy to do. It's not necessarily intentional, but it has a huge impact. So, it's important to teach about how bias works, how you might not realize you're doing it, and how to actually make a change.
Anyone else? All right, put your final votes in. Third place goes to Tim. Second place, Carl. And obviously first place, Ken. The order right now is third place, right now, we still have one more question, goes to Ken. Second place right now is Matt, and first place is Vicki. There's still one question and multiple cards.
Technically, Donnie, you and I can't win, so let's just quit. No.
No.
I'm good.
The last question's about
This one's worth 100
culture.
points, right?
And we do have bonus questions.
Oh, okay.
Carl, teachers are hesitant to use AI both in their own practice as well as with their students. How can schools create a culture that encourages calculated risk-taking and embracing failure, which will ultimately lead to adoption, change, and innovation?
All right, I'm going to tie a little bit into the last conversation into this one because I'm going to go ahead and say this. As a white man, it's really easy for me to tell everyone to take risks and fail. I'm just being honest with you. I'm not trying to be controversial. It is easy for me to say, go do this. It's easy. However, when you think about those underserved communities and those areas where maybe that's not so easy because they're put under these ideas, like the state takes them over in the state of Texas. We have this Houston ISTE, I don't know if any of you are from there. State came, took it over. It's really hard to create a culture where there's risk-taking is encouraged, where entrepreneurialism is encouraged. And so I think what you have to do in those environments is you have to create these little ecosystems within your classroom if you can. If you can't do that, if you have a principal that's supportive of it, that's awesome. I think one of the things we have to consider with kids is they will not take risks if their teachers are not also modeling the idea of taking risks. But I'm going to be honest with you, teachers will not take risks unless their leaders are also modeling this, and it doesn't happen a lot of the time. And I'm not talking about a book study with Carol Dweck. I love Carol Dweck, I love growth mindset. What I'm saying is it has to be more than that. You have to model it. Don't just say, hey, read the book and now we're gonna do it. No, actually have the growth mindset. I had a boss once who had what I call the false growth mindset. He would say, we gotta try new things, we gotta do new things. Send me that spreadsheet as an attachment. I hate Google Sheets. Like everything you know what I'm talking about? And then I had a principal in a middle school in Illinois. She said, I really want my staff to start embrace this idea of taking risks. What can I do? And she developed a system that wasn't very high tech. She took 3 folders, red, yellow, and green. She put them outside her doors. And she said, listen, I want you to put a folder outside your door. If it's green, it means come on in. We're rocking it. Come into the classroom. If it's yellow, it's like, come on in, but I'm trying something different. It may be disruptive or loud, but we're trying something new. And if it's red, nothing to see here, move along, right? Now what's interesting is the other teachers would start to see these visual cues, but so did the students. And they would start to wonder, why does my teacher always have a folder on red? There's a little bit of pressure there to try something different. She said her favorite days was walking down the hall and seeing yellow and green in the hallway. It told her that some teachers are trying new things, told her that some teachers are just open to doing different things in the classroom. And I think that idea of culture comes from the leader in the building and can grow from there.
I do an app building project and I had a problem. Although I have a diverse school, my teams, when the kids were self-selecting teams, the teams were not diverse at all. It really bothered me. And I read Adam Grant's book, Collective Intelligence, and created a 3-day module to teach pro-social behavior, narcissism and how it kills teams, and the importance of diversity and how effective teams can be when they are more diverse. And I saw the most diverse teams and the best apps I would ever seen for my students. And I think for all of us, understanding collective intelligence, how to have collective intelligence, but also the damage that narcissism does to teamwork is a really important conversation that I'm not hearing a lot in education. So pro-social behavior, narcissism, and the importance of diversity for good decision-making needs to be something we do in our classrooms and at the administrative level.
Thank you. Who's going to Matt's gone?
Yeah, so I think that going back to the question, we've got teachers that are hesitant, and how can we create a culture that encourages risk-taking, failure, innovation, and all of that stuff. And I think Carl made a good point that it starts from the top. But I think any of us that have worked with teachers, any of us that have coached teachers before, if you don't get with that teacher and figure out, what are you trying to do? What are your goals? What do you love about learning? What do you want to impart on these students? If we don't get personal with teachers, we're just going to be shouting into the wind, right? So I think if we really want teachers to kind of like give this a shot and maybe use it to improve instruction and help students, we've got to get personal with them. We got to help them see, how does this really impact you? How can this save you some time? How can this give you some ideas? If they don't see how it impacts them and can improve their teaching lives, then we're going to be shouting in the wind.
All right. Anyone else? Ken?
I'll share with you all a couple of quick things. So number one, you can tell the culture of a classroom, a school, or a district based on 2 things. 1, what is celebrated and highlighted, and 2, what is swept under the rug. And I share that with you all because there's a couple of things that I want to share within the AI and larger context. So first of all, AI is another emerging technology. For those of us that have been around for a minute, I remember when the internet first came out and how education responded to it. I remember when Google search came out and how education responded to it. I remember when Wikipedia came around and how education responded to it. I remember when Web 2.0 came around and education responded to it. And some of you were shaking your head. We've been there before. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, the whole idea around the failure thing in the culture is the idea that I always share. So number one, how often, and I would ask this of each and every one of you, how often do you give yourself the grace to make mistakes and recognize that there is absolutely no such thing as perfectionism? And then two, what I share with district leaders all the time is when you go into classrooms and you see something that doesn't quite match your experience, just because it isn't for you doesn't mean there has to be something wrong with it. Dang, you ran out of time. I have more.
I'll share a quick story. In my classroom, I have class jobs, and one of my class jobs this year was suggested, like the classroom bird watcher. I had a student who loved birds. We looked it up, ornithology, fun word. But, we had a little clipboard. Anytime a bird came to our bird feeder, the student would go and check off what kind of bird it was, bluebird, canary, whatever, the canary. They go ahead and check it off as it came there. But the student's like, hey, Mr. Piercey, I know that you love technology. How could we make a bird camera? So I was like, I have no idea how to do that. So I used AI, went in the chat GPT, said, hey, I want to make a bird camera. What do you recommend that we use? Recommended a Raspberry Pi. I said, I have no idea how to do that. I said, well, cool, let me show you some Python code that you can use. Wrote the Python code, got my admin to buy me a Raspberry Pi and a camera for $60. Taught me like literally how to, there's a big button, we called it the bird box. Remember the bird box, that movie? Big button on top. We rigged it where every time the student pressed that button when a bird was at our bird feeder, it not only took a picture, but it uploaded that photo to our Google Drive. And the reason why I share that story, one, it's cool, but secondly, it was a great way to build the culture in my classroom of, I don't know how to do this, but AI can help us get it done.
We only have 3 minutes. Anyone else? So there are no more cards? Okay, all cards are done. Final votes.
Donnie's Bird Box will be available as you're coming out.
Yep. All right, third place for this question goes to Matt.
I brought it for my session
Second
tomorrow.
place, Ken. First place, Carl. Matt gets 1. What's it? Who was Ken? Is that who was second? Okay. And oh my
Okay, that
goodness.
is awesome. Oh, hold on, I gotta say something.
Whoa.
That right there, what you all just did, let's give a round of applause. That's a testament to Alana putting this panel together. Like, seriously. I say we're all winners.
No, actually, you are all winners. I didn't want to say that, but I have something for each of you. So I do have a book raffle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the book raffle one more time. I had this thing like who made it if we had time, and there's AI generated content for you to guess who made it. We don't have time. So that just means we're going to have to do this again next year, ISTE25, right? Yeah. I picked the panelists based on the podcast, so definitely go and check it out. All of the questions that I asked them were directly related to their episode, so if something resonated with you, go back and check that out. And I'm going to have so many more people on, so keep that in mind. We're going to do the raffle. So while I'm doing the raffle, I'm going to have them speed round really quickly. One thing you hate people say about AI, like companies, vendors, what do you hate? And like their last final thought, if you want to tell someone something like a session or like something, go ahead, Matt, go.
Something that I hate, people saying that it's like a real person, because it's not. Did you say?
And you could share your thing you told me you want to share.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to tell everybody real quick, at noon, there's going to be a book giveaway where they're going to be giving away a whole bunch of copies of my book at the Screen Pal booth in booth 945. If you want to come get a free copy of my book.
All right,
Thanks.
Tim, something you hate people say, and one last final thing you want to share with the audience.
I integrate AI, so I hate the resistance. Like teachers don't realize how important this is going to be in the future, and like getting ahead of it to whatever degree we can is essential. Vote Donnie.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the stuff's been already echoed. Just make sure you're figuring out how you can use AI in the classroom, but at the same time that you still allow students to create stuff on their own. I guess something to plug. Today I'm doing a session that's not about AI. It's about using narrative podcasts in the classroom, not about necessarily how to create them, but how to incorporate them. Today at 1:30.
Go ahead, Vicki.
AI is going to solve the teacher shortage. Teaching is an art. This afternoon at 1:30, we have in this room AI and EdTech Super Share with 8 amazing people. It's going to be really fast, kind of like this one. And thank you for putting the panel together.
Of course. Go ahead, Ken.
I don't have anything specific, but anything that promises that AI will do something that stripped us of our humanity and what we do as educators. And in 15 minutes, I'll be in the school AI booth doing a book signing for mine. I also have quizzes, Screen Pals, and then Samsung. And thank you, Alana. This was a treat.
Yeah, it was fun, right?
I hate it when people say AI will kill creativity. We've been doing that in schools for years, folks.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you found it as enjoyable as I did, make sure you share this one out because I think it's a real gem. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Generative Age, powered by Nightscape. For a deeper dive, check out my new book titled, How'd You Guess? The Generative Age, now available on Amazon.
Our journey may pause here, but the conversation doesn't need to end.
Stay connected and informed by following me on social media at Alana Winnick and subscribing to my newsletter, all conveniently accessible on my website, alanawinnick.com.
Don't just listen, be a part of it. With your free Nightscape membership, you can join these live discussions, enroll in our free Generative Age Nightscape community, where you can share resources, ask questions, and collaborate with like-minded colleagues. If you enjoyed this podcast, consider leaving a review and telling a colleague or a friend.
We've got so much more in store, so be sure to join us next time for another exciting conversation. Until then, keep learning and keep growing in the generative age.